Hi everybody, this is Jessica for Pug Stitches and Knits, and today I'm going to show you how to graft the end of a toe using Kitchener stitch. So here is a sock that I've already finished, and if you look at the bottom here, it looks like there's no seam. So that's what grafting does. If I had seamed it, there would be a seam right across here. But since I grafted this whole toe, you can't really tell where it starts or finishes. It's just a seamless toe. All right, let's get started. So I've come to the end of my project. I have an even number of stitches on my front and back needles. I'm going to cut my tail. I need at least 3 lengths of what I have left. So I'd go 1, 2, 3, and then I want to add some for mobility so I'm not too tight at the end. So I cut a nice cut my working yarn with plenty of room. So some Kitchener videos might show you a setup round. I usually don't do that on my toe because it creates like an extra little lump. So I just skip that setup round and I just dive right in, and trust me, it'll look fine as you saw on my other sock, and you won't know any difference. So the way I remember, there are 2 steps on the front needle and 2 steps on the back needle. So I always think most of the time when we're doing ribbing or whatever we're doing, knitting comes first. So my front first needle, I'm going to go in knitwise first. And the first stitch you work on a needle will always come off, so that comes off. And then after I knit, I purl 1 stitch. Here's my back needle, so I'm going to do the reverse of what I did on the front needle. So I'm going to come in purlwise, slip my stitch off, give that a little tug so that isn't too big a stitch there. And then I'm going to come in here knitwise and leave that stitch on my needle. And I want to make sure when I'm doing that, like this loop here doesn't get caught on my needle, so it just stays in between the needles. And I give it a gentle tug because I want the tension, and I can adjust it as I go to be the same as my stitches. I don't want to yank it so tight I'm basically creating a seam, and I don't want it so loose that it looks sloppy. So as we go, we can check it and we can snug it up so it's the same tension as our socks. All right, so now I repeat from the front. And if I ever stop, I always try to stop with this and with everything at the end of a set. So the set would be front then back needle. So once I finish my back needle stitch that I left on, if I had to stop for something, I'd stop there. So I always know where I am. But obviously you'd want to try not to stop. So I'm on the front first needle. So first thing I do on front is knit. And first thing I do on both needles is take that stitch off. So knit off. And now I purl on. So always doing a knit and purl direction on each needle. It varies from front to back, but we're always taking the front stitch off and leaving that second stitch on. So now I'm in the back, so second back purl. So oops, so I purl off. Too much talking, not enough focus. And then I go in knitwise and stay on. And I'm using kind of a big needle for sock yarn, but I want you to be able to see it. So give it a gentle tug. Now I'm going to go in knitwise. And I'm just trying to kind of do it underneath my knitting needles so that I don't get that yarn caught on the needle. If I do, I can just slide off any loop I get caught. So I just watch as I go. Keep it from getting caught on my needles. That's my purlwise and stays on. Now I go to the back and I'm going to do purlwise and come off. And now I'm going to go in the back knitwise and leave it on. and there's a set, and I start over. And as you can see, I'm starting to get that little grafted area. So I'm gonna go knitwise, slide off, purlwise, leave on, purlwise, slide off, knitwise, leave on. And for those of you that are antsy and just want to get to the end here, when I get to the very end and I only have one left on each needle instead of two, I would just do the first half since I only have one stitch each. So when I get down to that single stitch there, I would just do it knitwise and off, and then I go to the back and do purlwise on and purlwise and off, and then I have no more stitches and I'm done, and I just check my tension and then sew in my end. With the rest of you, if you want to keep watching, you can watch a little. We'll do a little more. So I'm just going in my stitch knitwise, sliding it off. And I always like to leave my stitches kind of in the back here, not too close to the tip, because the worst thing that can happen is all your stitches fall off and then you're like, oh, what do I do? You do not want to have to redo Kitchener. If you can avoid it, it's not the funnest thing. So always be careful not to lose any of your stitches. So this one I go on purlwise and take it off, and I can use that needle to help me a little like I just did there. And then knitwise and stay on. The first few times you do Kitchener, it's intimidating, but then I actually find it kind of soothing. I kind of like it. Knitwise and off. Purlwise and on, back, purlwise and off, knitwise, so keep it on, and see, it's just this nice little invisible. Again, I can adjust my stitches slightly now or a little bit later if I want to. They look pretty good. There we go. And when you block it, it'll tighten it right up too, so. And again, I always finish so I know where to start when I pause. Right at the beginning. So as you get more adept, you can see like that I kind of just do both my front and back, my two steps at once. So I take that off, and then I might go in here knitwise and go on, and then I slide my needle through. It's just kind of, although this needle doesn't work great, but a little speedier. Knitwise off, purlwise on, purlwise and off, knitwise and on, knitwise and off, purlwise and on, purlwise and off, knitwise and on, knitwise and off, purlwise and on. I'm holding that because, like I said, I don't want to lose those stitches. Purlwise and off, knitwise and on, And like I showed you at the beginning, you can do it in 2 steps. You can just kind of combine it into one like I'm doing now. Make sure you just catch that single one. Knitwise and off, purlwise and on. And again, I'm giving it a gentle tug, but I'm not pulling it really hard. The first time I ever did Kitchener, I pulled it so hard it was like a seam. Lesson learned. I'm getting down to the end here. So I'm just going to go in. Knitwise and off. Purlwise and on. If I can get in there. Purlwise and on. And so if that stitch were to fall off, you will have it locked in. So it's not the end of the world if you don't do the very last step. Knitwise and on. And for the final round, I'm just going to go in knitwise on the front, take it off, purlwise in the back, take it off, and I'm all done. And I would just snug this up and sew on my ends. And as you can see, it's nice and pretty invisible, and I can just adjust that tension now if I wanted to. But I think that'll pretty much block it. I'm just going to adjust the tension. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And this is Jessica for Pug Stitches Knits. Hope to see you again soon.